Welcome to the Missoula National Weather Service Forecast Office, Part 2 of the El Niño 2023-2024 Winter Briefing. I'm meteorologist Dave Noble. I'd like to give our thanks to our climate team here at the office, Bob Nestor, Travis Booth, and Brian Conlon, for their input to this briefing. In this presentation, we'll investigate briefly what El Niño means, what the winter in month of November forecast looks like. Then we'll transition into some climatology metrics that we hope will help you understand further some of the nuances of El Niño winters, including the frequency of fog, wintry precip days, colder temperatures, and then look briefly at snowpack evolution. What is El Niño? Well, it's the warm phase of the El Niño Southern Oscillation. It's a known phenomenon since the past several centuries. It roughly occurs every 3 to 7 years, and it's a coupled ocean and atmosphere phenomenon, and it has meteorological, climatological, and human consequences. And the general pattern is usually milder in Alaska to Canada, and then wetter and cooler towards the southern part of the lower 48. The Climate Prediction Center forecast shows a high probability for El Niño conditions lasting through January. And then as far as temperatures for the December through February period for the Northern Rockies, it's calling for a 50 to 60% leaning milder across the northern part of the Northern Rockies, 40 to 50% leaning towards milder to the south. And then for precip, 40 to 50% leaning drier across western Montana, but 33 to 40% leaning drier for Grangeville South. And then how does November 2023 look? Well, the ensemble models depict the first part of November being mild and wet. And then the forecast from Climate Prediction Center shows equal chances for above or below precipitation and leaning milder. The latest run of the long-range model CFS V2 is forecasting above average temperatures and wetter conditions in Idaho and near average in western Montana for November. Here is a tally of the fog days from recent moderate to strong El Niños, primarily looking at Missoula. The foggiest month in the last 3 Niños was January. Bar graphs that you're looking at, the blue bars mean average, and then these are for the monthly total fog days. And you can see in October there were 6 days with fog reported at Missoula, and the average was 4. Then it was below average in November. December had 11 days, and that was above average, and so did January. January had 12 days, and that was above average. The following 2 slides attempts to show the difference between Niño, neutral, and Niña November through March period, where there was both precipitation and sub-freezing temperatures. This implies that there could be adverse road conditions. We found that these locations all saw around 50% of the November through March period experiencing both precip and sub-freezing temps. And other interesting tidbits include in Kalispell, the most recent strong El Niño 2015-2016 saw above average days. The last 4 Niño Decembers and Januaries were above average. In West Glacier, the last 5 Niño Decembers had 20 plus days, which is above average. For Missoula, the last 4 Niño Novembers had less than 15 days of both precip and sub-freezing temps. And for Missoula, for December, the last 2 moderate to strong Niños had above average days. And for Butte, the most recent strong Niño bucked the trend of other years with more active November-December, and the last 3 strong Niño Februaries all had 14 days. This looks at Idaho stations. Around 30% of the November through March period had days with precip and sub-freezing temperatures, except Pierce had 49%. You can see that the La Niña season for Pierce was well above average. Other interesting tidbits include Orofino, the most recent strong Niño, had a more active December. In Pierce, the last 5 Niño Novembers were near to above average. The last 3 Niño Decembers were near to above average. And the last strong Niño had above average precip and sub-freeze occurrences in Pierce. For salmon, the last 2 Niños had above average Decembers. This slide shows a graph of average number of hours less than 10 degrees for select sites. The take home for this slide, in general, is that the average number of hours less than 10 degrees for El Niño, the red bars, were less than in the neutral and La Niña years. Neutral years took the cake for Missoula and Butte, while La Niña years on average had a higher frequency of less than 10 degrees for Kalispell, Salmon, and Lowell. Similar results were found for thresholds of less than 15 and 20 degrees. Overall, El Niño winters experienced 70 to 80% of the hours below these thresholds compared to the colder La Niña and neutral winters. This image shows what the snow water equivalent percent of average for the end of March 2010, but it can also be an example of what a strong Niño can look like, generally below average water content. But as we have said before, that not all Niños are similar. The next several graphs will show you the accumulated snow water equivalent at several mountain basins across the Northern Rockies. This graph is for a single snowtail site located in the northern Swan Range called Noisy Basin. Each line represents a season, so the greenish line at the top signifies the record nonstop wet season and strong El Nino of 1997-98. Each time there is a sudden rise in the line, that shows a particular storm. The higher the rise, the more snow water fell. In the beginning of January 2015, there was a big dump, as seen in the sharp rise of the blue line. If the line steadies out or straight lines, then that means that precipitation did not occur. I think some takeaways from this graph is the fact that the snow water equivalent from many moderate strong Niños generally rose by late November into January, then some years straight-lined. High pressure, lack of storms. You can see 2015-2016 straight-lined February into March in this particular example. Towards the end of the season, there was a wide range of solutions on when snowmelt occurred from the different years. 2015 and 1987, not shown here, both started to lose snowpack by later April due to warmer temperatures, while 97, 91, 82, and 2006 were slower to melt. This particular graph is the average snow water equivalent for all the stations within the Flathead Basin. Besides the very active Niños 97 and 91, the lines in the top, the remainder of the other more recent moderate to strong Niños hovered near the median, which is a light green line. It's kind of hard to see, and with a steady rise December through February. I apologize, but the color of the years from each graph, each of these slides, are different. I couldn't change the colors to match the years. For the Bitterroot Basin, there was a steady rise by late November, then a steady rise for most years in December except 2009. Here's the Upper Clark Fork Basin. The moderately strong Niño in 1987 was a low season, and you can pause this if you want to kind of look closely at it. The Clearwater Basin in Idaho showed several of the Niños to be above the median by early January, and then some of them kind of plateaued. And lastly, this is the Salmon Basin in Idaho, which showed a similarity with the Clearwater Basin, with several of the stronger Niños above the median by early January, and then some of them started to flatline February into March, except for 97, 82, and 86. So in summary, we're still in an El Nino advisory through the winter. Looks like an active weather pattern in the mountains, mild and wet in the early part of November 2023. The forecast for the winter, milder, drier, December, January, February on average, but not every El Nino is the same as we've been looking at. Previous strong Niño 2015-2016 was more active from the November through December period. And then we saw that there was less frequent temperatures colder than 20 degrees in El Nino winters. And precip occurrence and sub-freezing temperatures occurred about 50% of the time of the November through March period in western Montana and in the northern Clearwater Mountains of Idaho, and about 30% of the time in that period for the lower elevations of north central Idaho. Please stay tuned for another video to come out in the coming days, which will go into detail about how the 2015 to 2016 strong El Nino fared in the northern Rockies. And for more information, you should check out these links. Check out the INSO blog. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you can contact us.